I think the change can be positive depending on how we collectively agree to what that can be. We have a tremendous amount of unexpressed love that I think is really ready and waiting to come out and be seen in action.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you ever wanted to know what in the world is going on today and what it means for the future of you and humanity, then do we have the Realization Show for you. Today I'll be talking with Paul Selig, medium and author of many of my all-time favorite spiritual texts, including the Book of Freedom and his latest masterpiece, Beyond the Known, Realization. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about moving beyond our current illusion and our fears to see a new reality. So welcome back to the show, Paul. Are you ready to shine?
I'm ready to shine. Thanks, Michael.
Woohoo! And before we dive right into things, I've got this beaming ear-to-ear grin because you are home for me. Where are you and how'd you end up getting there?
I am in Maui, on the island of Maui. I was invited here by a friend who said, I have a little cabin for you to stay in. I had left New York City to do a retreat, and during the retreat, things got pretty rough in New York, and I came here instead of going home. So I actually moved apartments last week without being in New York for the move, and my dog is with somebody else, but I'm very, very grateful to be here. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm fortunate.
Very, very good. And so I guess I have to ask it really before we dive into things, is this the shift, the moment your guides told you was coming almost since the beginning?
You know, I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about what we're suddenly encountering since the beginning, and certainly that teaching has been escalating in the last few books. I've been thinking about it. You know, in the very first book, I Am the Word, which was dictated in 2009, published in 2010, the guide said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And then they really went on to say that everything that was created in fear or has been claimed in fear has to be reknown in a higher way. Mm-hmm. And in the more recent books, because I guess there's 7 in print now or something, 3, 6, 7, the 8th is coming out, Realization is the 7th. They really started escalating this teaching about the collective and what the collective is undergoing. And they've been talking about the collective undergoing a re-seeing of all of our structures, social structures, political structures, religious structures, economic structures. In the Book of Truth, which was dictated right before the last election, the last presidential election, they really got into it. And I was very surprised because what I began to understand was what this teaching, which I had initially thought was about the realization of the individual, was really about the realization of the collective, and that the individual's realization or awareness of his or her own innate divinity is actually part of a much larger collective act. Yeah. And the collective act that they teach has always been sort of spoken of as not a terrifically graceful process. I mean, they've talked about it as a tidal wave, washing away the old. I mean, it's not gloom and doom. There's no Armageddon in these teachings, thank God. I don't think I could bring them through if they did. But they've been bracing us for a while, embracing me. And, I don't remember a lot of the dictations. I'm a channel. I don't write these books. I just take the dictation. And I remember, all of these live streams where I would say things like, this sounds really scary. And they would say, well, no, it's not. It really isn't that. It's something other. And it really is about how you attend to the one beside you and the reality at hand. I think we're all being given this astonishing opportunity to come into the present moment and see who we really are and who everybody else really is and what this means. I think the masks are off. The guides have been saying that for a while. So I'm just going on. My head's been full about this stuff because I've been channeling for so long. And I don't always, sit there and interpret it. My job is really to be the radio for it. But my life is certainly, up in the air, as is everybody else's, right now. And it's a challenging time, no question.
It's interesting. So many things you just said, and I would love to be. You might say it's a scary place. I would love to be in your head right now because you are getting to look back at your books and look back at everything that's shared and try to make sense of it,
Yeah.
given current circumstances.
Well, I am in a way, and I know that there are people that are studying the books because I see them, posting online, and they're quoting things that the guide said that are quite apropos to this moment we're all sharing, that I never would have remembered necessarily, or things that they said in live streams. I understand, I suppose, that the process of realization, which is what the guides teach, I don't know if they're teaching enlightenment, but they are teaching realization, which they say is knowing, has a great deal to do with the moving up aside and the dislodging of these things that we've used to obscure the truth of who we really are. I mean, in recent lectures and before the virus hit, the guides were really talking about, this process that we're entering into as the equivalent of sort of rolling a rock out of place in the mud, and the stuff that's been sort of covered by the mud, the creepy crawlies, are all being exposed. And this is opportunity. Nothing gets healed until it's seen. You don't spiritual bypass. You don't pretend it's not there. You don't pretend that there's not inequity and financial inequity, in the way that we've lived our lives here. And I think the opportunity for many of these things to be confronted right now is what we're getting to see some of. I hope that there's good that comes out of it if we're truly seeing these things. But yeah, in the Book of Truth, they said, truth is here, it's an energy. And everything that is not in truth is going to be shaken. It's really that simple. And they talked about it at the time as the equivalent of an archaeological dig. And they say, imagine you have a backyard where, what you buried there 5 weeks ago is coming up, and what was buried 5,000 years ago is coming up too. And the yard is going to look like a bit of a mess. But it's opportunity. It's opportunity to see what's been buried, what's been hidden, what's been put in shadow. The guides say, what you put in darkness calls you to that darkness. What you damn damns you back. What you bless, and they say a blessing is just really the realization of the presence of Source upon whatever you're seeing. Because Source must be present in whatever you're seeing. It's just been denied. That's really what sort of supports great change. So what I started to say, I think, was that the process of individual realization and what we undergo personally with our own boulders being moved and sort of having to confront our own shadow is also true at the level of the collective. I mean, one of the apt criticisms of the New Age has always been a kind of self-indulgence, and my pain, and it's also important. Well, everybody's pain is important, or everybody's pain is present right now. And I think we're being invited to move in a different way collectively. The guides have said for a very long time, they say you are in accord with everything that you see before you. And they say ACCORD or ACHORD as on a piano, yes, which is a vibrational chord. And they said, that doesn't mean that you've made it happen. I used to say, well, I didn't make the war in Iraq. And they said, well, no, you didn't make the war in Iraq, but you're in accord to it because your consciousness is present with it. It's part of your world. So if it's part of your world, your consciousness is informing it. The idea of the collective consciousness right now and how we're all attending to things, I think is extraordinarily present as opportunity. And I have to say that there must be opportunity here.
So if we're incredibly present and there is opportunity, there are several questions around the collective. The first is, are we collectively wishing a new world into existence, or are we collectively wishing, because we are all drawn like bees to honey right now, or are we collectively agreeing to a temporary, I'll put in quotes, nightmare?
I have no idea. It's a really interesting question. But I hear from the guides both are true. And it does depend on how you want to interpret it. How do you want to see a dream? How do you want to see a dream? There is benefit in a nightmare. There is benefit in a nightmare. You release the things you were frightened of. You release the things you were frightened of in your dream state, and then convene again, and then convene again with the release in place, with the release in place. The true self you see. This is the guides, by the way. They're saying the true self you see, who knows who he is unafraid, is unafraid, and the alignment to the true self, and the alignment to the true self in most ways requires an individual or culture or species or a culture or a species to move through the shadow, to reintegrate the truth, that has always been there but been denied, that has always been there but been denied. We have said many times that the denial of God, the denial of the divine, its only true problem humanity faces, is the only true problem humanity faces. He interrupts as the virus, the denial of the divine, is the virus, the denial of the divine. The virus is a symbol in some ways. The virus is a symbol in some ways, and a reality in others, and a reality in others. How you attend to a symbol will transform your understanding, will transform your understanding. That also does not mean you don't attend to what is real. You don't attend to what is real. You don't see what is there. You don't see what is there. You don't heal what can be healed. You don't heal what can be healed and sing. In other words, sing the song of healing for those who require it. Whatever that means. I wasn't planning on channeling. I'm on my first cup of coffee, and I'm on a wacko time change for me.
and I wasn't planning on it either. So thank you to the guides, and my guess is they're going to be coming back more as I have more questions about everything that they were saying. So let's take it piece by piece is what they said, and we'll see where we end up going. They said to get in alignment through your true self, you have to move through the shadow. How do we move through the shadow without getting stuck at this point in the dark?
Understand that the divine is the only truth. Well, they're saying understand that the divine is the only truth, period. Say this again. So they've been saying this for some time, and it's challenging for me because the words come out of my mouth, and I'm not the guides, and I want to contest them and fight them and disagree with them all the time. But they've been saying for some time that the denial of the divine is the only real problem we face. And that, what you put in darkness calls you to the darkness. It's really very simple. And fear, in all ways, they say, is the denial of the divine. The action of fear is to claim more fear. And they've also said that one of the great fears that we all have, and finally the only one that we're really attending to in many ways, is the fear of death. Who are we and what are we if we're not what we think? So how do we all move through this? I don't know. I mean, your question was, what do we do when we get stuck in the darkness?
How do we move through the shadow, as they're saying, without getting stuck in the darkness? Because right now I see a positive change possible, but I also see us getting sucked in.
Absolutely. Answer this. This thing, we will answer this. The true self that you are. The true self that you are is unafraid. If you align to the true self that you are. If you align to the true self that you are, lift to what we call the upper room, lift to what we call the upper room, which is a higher vibrational state, where fear does not express. You attend to what is before you. You attend to what is before you. You're not ignoring pain. You are not ignoring pain. You are pretending to be in bliss. You are not pretending to be in bliss. You are actually who you are. You are factually who you are, but operating in a higher way, From the higher perspective you sit at. From the higher perspective you sit at, you may lift who you encounter. You may lift who you encounter and what you encounter to the upper room, where indeed it may be made new, Now this is applicable. Applicable in any situation, The truth of who you are. The truth of who you are, which is the divine self, sees and perceives the divine, sees and perceives the divine in all that he encounters, to render something outside of God. This cannot be of God. Is to put it in darkness, What you put in darkness calls you to that level of vibration, That is vibrational accord. To lift something to the upper room. Is to re-see it as of God, or to re-know the self and with it, or to re-know the self as with it at that level. He interrupts. They're saying he interrupts because I'm interrupting. I just want to know, how do we not get stuck, if that's what we're asking? The answer is very simple. Know who you are. The aspect of you that is stuck. The aspect of you that is stuck is the aspect that wants certainty, that wants the solution that he wants, that wants the outcome that says it should be, that wants the outcome that he says it should be. That is not how this works. That is not how this works. Uncertainty at this way is ripe for possibility, possibility and ripe for reunion, and ripe for reunion if you got everything you wanted all the time. If you got everything you wanted all the time, if you decided everything is what it should be, if you've decided everything is what it should be, you would sit very patiently. You would sit very patiently and get everything you think you should have, and get everything you think you should have, and not bother with source, and not bother with source, understanding source. Understanding source, the act of the divine. The act of the divine is present in all things, as present in all things, moves you into union, moves you into union. The storm, the shadow, the storm, the shadow, the shadow, the challenge, all may be seen as of God, all may be seen as of God, and hence renown, period, period, period.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to the guides as well. I think if there's one takeaway from this, and correct me if this is not your understanding, is that if we can recognize the divine in everything. First off, the whole idea that we are not a spiritual being having a human existence. Right now we're at mile 20 of the marathon. Everybody becomes spiritual once we hit mile 20. Once we start to recognize that, that naturally elevates us up to the upper room. So that means we have to accept our true nature, and I get to ask what that is, but also even the true nature, maybe even especially the true nature of the virus, because nothing is not the divine.
That's how they've said it, and I'm extraordinarily challenged by it, and I don't want the words to come out of my mouth because I am so challenged by it, but that's what they're saying. Everything must be reknown as of source. You don't get to cherry pick what is of God. They say if God is all things, God is birth and death and all things. It's not just the pretty things with the bows on them that we say should go up on some meme on Facebook. It doesn't work that way. And I mean, it's a very different comprehension of reality. But, the guides have been talking about the kingdom for years. Yeah. And they say the kingdom is the realization of the divine that is already present. They say you cannot make anything holy. Everything already is. They say there is one source in the universe, one note being played. And that one note being played is an articulation as all things. And the remembrance of that is the reunification of what we see with their inherent source. So, they say, we've been so moored in separation and in the belief in separation that we interpret our entire reality through that paradigm. And they say, well, it's not true. So the upper room seems to be where they take us to begin to shift that consciousness, to lift things back to a place of unification. So the kingdom, again, the awareness of the divine in all things, they say isn't something you make so, it's something you align to. They say that everything exists in multiple octaves, multiple, dimensions, but they say octaves. Yeah. They say you can sing any song in any key up into infinity. Just because, your vocal cords can't sing it or your ears can't hear it doesn't mean it can't be sung. And the upper room, they say, is the level of vibration above the sort of collective agreement to separation. And that there's an aspect of us that's already present there, which is the true self, which is who and what we're aligning to in manifestation in order, they say, to lift the world. You can't lift the world to the higher from the low octave. It doesn't work that way. You understand? It just can't be done. You lift yourself, and then you lift what you encounter by nature of co-resonance.
I love that. There's a concept that I've been teaching right now that is the ultimate selflessness is selfishness. Working on getting to the upper room yourself changes your vibration, which helps change the octave that we are all at as a collective.
Well, that's what I get, yeah. They say you become a doorway or a portal, to the upper by nature of being. It's less about what you do, what one does, or, one's career, all these things that we thought service meant. Yeah. The guides say how one serves is how one is most fully expressed as their true self. And that takes different forms, but finally it's a vibrational act. It's not necessarily passive. The one who's called to work in the fields goes work in the field. The one who, heals the sick. But the true self, they say in vibration, lifts what it encounters by nature of being. And realization, the guides say, is about being. It's less about what one does and how one figures everything out.
That makes sense. So then with that said, where do we begin to get into this higher resonance, particularly at this time?
They're saying we would like to answer this. Take a moment to decide something. Take a moment to decide something. Whoever you are, whoever you are, wherever you be, wherever you be, you have a right to be. You have a right to be and to be where you are and to be where you are, wherever you sit, wherever you make peace with this, wherever you make peace with this. I have a right to be. I have a right to be is the perfect spot, to realize yourself, to realize yourself. Now, realization, we think. Now, realization is not what you think. It's not about changing an idea of who you are. It's not about changing an idea of who you are. It's about releasing a false idea. It's about releasing a false idea that you could be anything other than what you are, that you could be anything other than what you truly are, than what you truly are, and the true self that you are, and the true self that you are, who exists beyond the date of birth, who exists beyond the date of birth, beyond the gender or ethnicity or religion, or ethnicity or religion is the aspect of self, that seeks to come into fruition, is the divine self. It is the divine self, the God within as you, who seeks to encounter the world, who seeks to encounter the world and lift it to itself and lift it to itself. Now, the divine self as you. Now, the divine self as you has a name. You may call it whatever you wish. You may call it whatever you wish. You may call it I am. You may call it I am. You may call it the indwelling Christ. You may call it the indwelling Christ, or the monad, or the monad. It really matters not. It really matters not, as long as you encounter it. As long as you encounter it and offer yourself to it and offer yourself to it. The aspect of self that says, yes, I am willing, that says, yes, I am willing, is the will that you have been gifted with, is the will that you have been gifted with. It must be entwined, and offered to the higher for reconciliation to occur. Now, what is reconciliation, you ask? Now, what is reconciliation, you ask? Reconciliation, quite simply, is reunification, with your true nature, at the cost of the idea of who you thought you were, of who you thought you were. It's really a very simple process. If you understand what you're teaching, if you understand what we are teaching, the claim I know who I am in truth, the claim I know who I am in truth, which is spoken by the true self, not the personality self, of the divine as you, but the divine as you, the one who knows who he is, the one who knows who he is, knows who she is, is making an announcement of being, and then manifestation, I know what I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. Manifest word, the word made flesh, the word we suggest, is the active expression, of the divine as all things, I know what I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. Matter as source. They cannot be separate. I know how I serve. How you express fully. These simple claims, I know in truth. I know who I am in truth. I know what I'm in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. 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 Our energetic attunements that will align the energetic field, and support the body, in lifting to a higher octave. It is claimed in truth. What is true is always true. You're not conjuring. And are making yourself holy. You are not making yourself holy. You're claiming your inherent divinity. You are claiming your inherent divinity. Now, the claim I am free, I'm free, I'm free. Now, the claim I am free, I am free, I am free is the true self speaking its truth, is the true self speaking its truth, the true self as you, who knows who she is, what he is, how he serves, is not bound by false fear, by old recrimination, by the collective agreement to fear, by the collective agreement to fear, or to agree to be fearful, or to agree to be fearful. The claim I am free is what allows you to lift to the next octave, From this place, you may simply claim the truth. Of the divine self in expression, I am in the upper room. I am in the upper room, and from this vibrational field, you may begin to lift the world. You may begin to lift the world, period. And they're saying period.
Thank you. So to paraphrase just a bit of what they're saying,
sure.
is that there is a statement, a claim, a something that we can say or share or repeat that helps us to get to this upper room. I
Yeah.
know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free.
Correct. Yeah, they're saying correct. I mean, I'll explain this, and I know that I just dove in and started channeling on this thing, and I certainly wasn't expecting to. So if people are even still listening, I'll finish the explanation.
With our audience, they are listening more than you could ever imagine right now.
Okay. All right. So the guides work with attunements, and they say, we're all radios, and we're always in broadcast, and our broadcast is our consciousness and our expression. That's it. And all they're doing with these attunements is tuning the radios that we are to play the higher stations that they say have always been there, but we've been ignoring or refuting or denying. It's really that simple. So what they do is they say that the claims of truth are energetic attunements. And really, through the invocation of them, you align the frequency. I mean, when I do this in workshops and groups, I mean, we can all feel it. You can all feel the energy shift. You can do it with others. I know who you are in truth. I know what you are in truth. I know how you serve in truth. Because what is true is always true. You're not making somebody something that they're not. You're claiming who they truly are. And again, you can feel, in most cases, the energy expand and lift. So this seems to be the way to support a higher alignment in a practical way. Now, there are certain things that I always have to remember, and I've been, I'm a New Yorker. I'm deeply troubled and concerned. I have so many friends there. My dog is there. I'm not there right now, and I hope to go back soon. But the action of fear is to claim more fear. And they say, look at every choice you make in fear and see what you get, and you're going to get more of the same. And from this perspective that they're teaching, it's really interesting. If you do these attunements and then you go, I am in the upper room, and then you ask yourself what you're afraid of, you're probably going to find that there's nothing there because you've lifted beyond it. You're not ignoring something. If there's a python in the living room, you're not going to want to go pick it up. To understand, you understand it, but you're not operating in fear in the way that perhaps we've been so conditioned to.
Thank you. So I think what I want to dive into is Paul Selig's Psychology 101. Please forgive me, Paul.
It's all right.
Because the words have come through you, but you have many disagreements with the words, and we may even dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But right now you are having to do a cha-cha-cha, which means upper room, alignment, okay,
Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
Holy, excuse me, look at what is happening in the city. Look at what's happening in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Look at how do you do that dance, Paul?
How do I do that dance? It's very funny. Because when the guys started saying that there was something coming, which was about a year and a half ago, I said, just get me out of New York and someplace pretty. That's all I said. I don't want to be in New York.
Look at your backdrop. For those who can't see, he's got a beautiful banyan tree behind him.
But I was, I lived through the AIDS epidemic in New York where many of my friends died. I lived through 9/11 living in downtown Manhattan. I just said, I don't want to do this one again. I want to go someplace. So I was happily placed someplace where I could have a different perspective, I expect. But I'm not really doing a cha-cha-cha with this stuff. I'm actually having to work with these teachings in very practical ways. And it's been happening since the beginning of the year. Everything, the book that was channeled, it's really funny because I just read it right before all this happened, which is the book that's coming out in August. It's called Alchemy. Mm-hmm. Alchemy was dictated over the course of about 3 months in workshops when my life, I thought, was just completely falling apart. Everything that I trusted was sort of the relationships. Everything seemed to be going, and I couldn't believe I was having to channel a book. And I was convinced that the book made no sense at all. And when I read the book, finally, when, the publishers, sent it to me for proofing, I was astonished at how clear a teaching it was, and a beautiful teaching. And I think in many ways, they pushed me well out of the way, in order to do this. But when I look at the last year, where so much of what I thought I had to have or had to be or had to, claim myself as to be safe in my world, is so much of that was left, just went away. I was left with a different sense of who I am, that I'm still beginning to integrate. So I think what this hasn't done is given me the opportunity to do the cha-cha. It's given me the opportunity to say, okay, this is real. This is what they've been teaching, and this is your work, and this is why you've been showing up for this. I didn't expect to be a channeler. This isn't what I thought I would do with my life. I was quite content with my life as a college teacher, and probably would have stayed doing that, except the work began to take over, and I just made this agreement to show up for the work anyway. And it's always been that I'm going to show up anyway. I used to do this work when I had 3 people coming to my living room once a week, and now, we can have many, many hundreds, online or at an event. And I show up anyway, and I think, again, if one day there's only 3 people that want to come, I'd still be there anyway. That's my work. It's not about anything other than showing up and being present for this. But I'm being called forward. I think we all are, to our real nature, which is, hey, this is an opportunity to re-know who we are and know who everybody else is. And I have to say, the kindness that I've experienced in the last couple of weeks from people, has been astonishing to me. I was really not knowing where I would go or could go at a certain point. And I'm seeing this all over, we have a tremendous amount of unexpressed love that I think is really ready and waiting to come out and be seen in action.
So thank you so much for sharing. I'm very curious. Then it's a topic I had no idea that your book is called Alchemy, because the teachings I've been giving are about us being alchemists, about being wizards, about transmuting. What are the big lessons, if you can recall, that you're getting that now make such sense?
Well, a lot of what they were talking about in that book was the transition that one undergoes individually and collectively between the octaves of expression, or between the levels of vibration. And they talk about it this way. They say, you're given a new apartment on the 10th floor and you're used to living in the basement. The view from the basement, and you've collected all your stuff. It's in the basement. And now you go up to the 10th floor and you go, wow, this is wonderful. There's so much light. There's a different view, but where's all my stuff? And then we go back down to what we've had, because it's the known. So the process of sort of divesting ourselves of who we think we are, because they say who we think we are primarily is just an idea that we've given tremendous credence to. That process, and the process of what we think it means to be ourselves. Who am I without my job? Who am I without my health? Who am I, without my partner, or my bank account, or my religion? Who am I without these things? That's the process of the guides say we undergo as we lift in vibration. We don't get to bring the garbage from the basement up to the 10th floor apartment. We have to let it go. So the collective, I understand, is having to do this as well. When they talk about alchemy in this book, they're talking about bringing us to a level of vibration where one is able to claim, and they've just started teaching this maybe 3 months ago in workshops, and I'm assuming it's what the next book is going to be about. They're working with the claim, behold, I make all things new, which is astonishing when you work with it. You go to this level, what they call the upper room, and then you make the claim, and you literally can feel the energy rolling out in waves from the field. It's unlike anything I've ever really experienced. But what they're saying is you're really translating, you become, what's the word? You become the one who transposes vibration. You lift it from one key to the higher by nature of the resonant field. And that's the act of alchemy. It's not about loaves into fishes. It is about the realization that everything in form, everything that we know of as form, is one source in vibration. And what you're doing is you're realizing the inherent divinity in what is seen in order to lift it. It's already holy. You can't make it holy, but you can deny the holiness in anything. And that's really what we have done. And it's what the guides say. The denial of the divine is the only real problem that we have. And it shows up in how we treat each other, how we care for each other, how we care for the planet. It's all the same problem. You don't kill what you know to be holy,
What's beautiful about this is you just flipped a switch in me, which is, it's interesting. The first thing that you mentioned to me before the guides came through was tidal wave. And whether it's Cuomo or anyone else, we're talking about a wave of disease coming over us, but more than that, we're talking about a wave of fear. But we could also, if we recognize the inherent divinity in this experience, we could see a wave of possibility, or to go beyond that, a wave of alchemy.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I actually feel that it is. I hope, we all make it through this well. I truly do. I don't think, and the guides have said, we don't have to learn all our lessons through fear. It's not the best teacher.
Yeah.
But unless we wake up to other possibilities, we may. That's how we'll continue to be taught. So I hope, and I've been told, and that's what they've been teaching in the live streams every week, is about, the inherent potential in this time. And honestly, it's what they've been teaching, so it hasn't changed. It's just becoming much more resonant because there's something to attach it to. And they are teaching about lifting everything, including what we call a virus, to source, for it to be reknown. Because again, what you damns you back, and you give great power to. And, I'm challenged by that teaching, but I understand it. The guides have said you can't lift the evil man to the upper room. You can't do it because you have made him evil.
Yes.
And when you make somebody evil, you align to them at that level of vibration. And then that becomes your reality. So you have to re-see the man as of source in order to translate your experience of him.
So when you read the news right now, and you see things that to the conscious mind seem wacky, how do you switch it?
I'm not. I'm probably doing just what everybody else is doing right now, which is, I was on Facebook and somebody posted a picture of a morgue truck that's parked 4 blocks from my apartment in New York City. I'm devastated by it and heartbroken by it. And I have to hope that there's good that comes through this. And I feel in some obvious ways, the fact that we've lived in a culture where some don't get to go to the doctor because they don't have the funds to go. It's insane if you think about it. And that's how we treat one another. And it's indicative of how we've lived our lives. Well, as long as I've got what I need, it's going to be okay. And that's all separation. We're being faced, I think, in some ways with how we've treated one another. And looking at what the opportunities are, I do feel that this is, and the guides have said this as well, that this is really a great leveler in many ways, and that there is opportunity in that. I think that, culturally we've been fooling ourselves for quite some time. And I think if the opportunity to wake up to how we treat one another and how we care for one another and how we care for ourselves comes from this, that would be a very positive thing, and I'm very hopeful. But, I read the news every day and I'm stunned, and at the same time, I'm not surprised, only because, they've been talking about this, not a virus per se, but they've been talking about change that impacts all of the structures that we have had. And it never felt like war to me, it never felt like that simple. Because, and they've said this, they've said that this is the first time in a very, very, very long time, which I assume means thousands of years, where humanity has been dealing with a collective event. They say even a war, even a world war, is resolved by the participants of the war. And, there are countries that are choosing to operate in this way. This is something beyond that. And that the entirety of humanity is having to sort of experience something together for the first time. And that this can be a time of possibility if we allow it to be, and I have to trust that that's the case.
Thank you. How important is it, or how important would the guides say is it, that the guides have talked before, I believe, my term, not theirs, critical mass of a certain amount of us vibrating and reaching that higher room. I can't tell yet. I am very hopeful. And there are things like these massive mass meditations coming up, which we're doing as well.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I guess the word that's coming to me is, how do we serve?
I can go to the guides with this. Again, I'm just the guy who, I'll see what they want to say. How one serves is how one expresses in fullness. How one serves is how one expresses in fullness. How attends one what's before him. How one attends to what is before him. How one attends to neighbor's needs. How one attends to his neighbor's needs, his brother's needs, his brother's needs, his sister's needs, his sister's needs. You must understand who you are. You must understand who you are. You are all aspects of one source. You are all aspects of one source, having individuated experience, but you are not separate, but you are not separate. The belief in separation is what will be healed. It's what will be healed is what will be healed through these times, if you attend to the lessons that come, if you attend to the lessons that come, and the lessons are coming very fast, What you call a virus is not the first, nor will it be the last lesson, nor will it be the last lesson of the cost of separation. You have opportunity in every lesson. You have opportunity in every lesson to know who you truly are, to witness the divine in your brother, and to witness the divine in your brother, to care for those who are sick, to care for those who are sick, to feed those who are hungry, to feed those who are hungry, to love those who are not loved, to love those who are not loved. You have every opportunity now. How you attend to these times and one another, how you attend to these times and one another will have lasting effect, and it will be for you, and for the future, of humanity, to know itself in a higher way, period. They're saying period.
Thank you, guides. Thank you, Paul. Several key points. First off, the most basic, and it was a question that I had, but we've been getting a feeling about this, that if we stay in this state of separation, this is coming, I'm going to say it's coming out of love. It's not coming out of won't you get the lesson? I guess it is. That's the same thing. This is not the last.
No, I haven't. I don't get that this is the last.
Right.
I don't get that at all. I hope I'm here, at the end of this thing. I hope you're here. I hope we're all here at the end of this thing. And, God knows humanity has been through plagues before and wars before, and everybody dies at some point. That's part of being here. And I do believe that there's more than this reality that we have an opportunity to know ourselves through beyond the bodies we've taken. And, it's, I suppose, part of the miracle of being alive to experience all these things. These are extraordinary times. They really are. They're extraordinary times. And unasked for at a personal level, and maybe agreed to at the collective, because the guides say we're all in vibrational accord with what we see, which means to a certain extent it doesn't exist without us, and we're all participatory to this shared reality. The guides used to say, you've lived in a planet so long with war that you expect war to be there, and so you're always going to have war until, they say, you can lift to a level of vibration or consciousness where war is not even an option. If war is not even an option, if you can't even imagine war, there is no need for it. It ceases to exist. And I think that we have opportunity here now for, I don't want to say it, I want to say re-knowing, re-understanding, reclaiming, re-seeing all the what is before us in a higher way. Because I think that's when the other options become apparent. That's when the new can be born, not when we're trying to just fix it all. I don't think things are going to get fixed this time. I think things are going to be changed. And I think the change can be positive depending on how we collectively agree to what that can be.
Thank you. I've been calling it a pre-CV world and a post-CV, and that there is never a going back. However, there is still the potential of being stuck in this state of separation if we label it. For instance, you say what we damns us back. If we say, I won't watch this, I won't see this, I don't, we are affirming it, aren't we?
I agree. Yes, exactly. I mean, some people say, my guides haven't said it, but I have friends that believe this fully. The universe doesn't understand a negative. So saying, I won't watch that puts it right to you.
Yeah.
But no, it's not about pretending things don't happen. I think that that's never been a healthy way forward. I understand people say, well, I don't want to watch the news and I don't want to lower my vibration. But I also think that, that's denial too. Do you understand? It's also a way to pretend. When I was in my early 30s and I had studied a form of energy healing, I was volunteering at a center that had been set up in Lower Manhattan for people that were living with life-challenging illness. It was mostly AIDS in those days because there was no cure. But I remember occasionally meeting some people who were saying, and it was a woman, actually. I remember it very well because she was covered. And I don't do medical work. It's not really my thing. It never really has been. But I mean, I had my hands on her and she was covered in tumors. You could feel them come through her blouse. And she was like, I don't care about Western medicine. And I was thinking, I wish she had a year ago. I wish she had, really. I mean, I think we care for one another the best ways we know how with whatever tools we have at our disposal, And I think it's so interesting at this moment in time that, the doctors and the nurses and the people in the supermarkets are being valued,
Yes.
really valued for what they're doing. And I mean, at this moment, who cares how many followers somebody has on Instagram? Who cares? Who cares? And frankly, why did it matter before? I mean, let's take the opportunity. Why did it matter before? I mean, the guides have said for so long, you're all equal. No human being is higher than the next. That's really just a load of it just is.
Yeah.
I have to say that, we're all here to learn different things and we come in different lives and, have these experiences with a shared reality and our individual concerns and hopefully we grow. But I think we're having collective growth right now. It's a collective experience. And, I believe that it's a great initiation for humanity, and initiations, spiritual initiations, are not fun. I've had some whoppers. They're not fun necessarily. Whenever I hear the guides say, well, it's productive, I go, oh boy. Productive means you're going to learn a lot through it, but it's not going to necessarily be pleasant.
Yeah.
And the guides, when I was channeling, I do these live streams on Wednesdays, and the guide said, you're crossing a chasm right now. Humanity is crossing a chasm, and like all crossings, not everybody makes it over to the other side, but it's part of this process. And I don't get that that's bad, I don't get that that's bad. They're oddly neutral about many things. I mean, I don't usually tell this story, but, when I was years ago, I was in a relationship with somebody who was opening up a business in Lower Manhattan and wanted to know if he was going to be able to make the rent on his on his office space in October. And he said, ask the guides. And I said, and the answer was no. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, there's going to be a terrorist attack in Lower Manhattan. And in fact, there was, and, the whole neighborhood was shut down. But it came in such a neutral way. It wasn't what a terrible thing. It's this other thing that we're going to be experiencing here, as part of this, astonishing world that we're all a part of, and we're having one of these moments now where I have to say, when you can't control everything, sometimes humility is found in those moments. God is found when you go, I can't fix it. I can't stop it. I can't make it other. But let me maybe at least understand. Let me maybe at least re-know, I think this is one of those times. And at that level, it is ripe with potential for good.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. There's something from your book, Realization. Your idealization of outcome. I could lose my job, my house, my marriage, in all ways is presupposing that there is an outcome that will be harmful to you.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's the frame. It's not going to be what we want. It can't be what we want. My brother and I have never been terribly close,
Yeah.
and we're trying now, and he's been really very wonderful with me during this period. And he and his wife are, out of the city. And he wrote me that he's living a very simple life right now,
Yeah.
And he's liking it.
Wow.
And, and I'm living a very different life too right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a chicken and a rooster on either side of me right now. It's not who it's not the life I thought. And I'm glad to be here, and it's different. But I also think if we have the opportunity to reevaluate and sort of know who one another is, if I have a nicer relationship with my family as a result of this, that's a gift. It's a gift. Anyway.
It puts everything in priority. That's part of why there's no going back. Every way we were living. So I had on recently, I've had so many people on saying almost the same message. Irvin Laszlo, 2-time Nobel Peace Laureate nominee, has been on talking about how we as humanity, from a scientific point of view, that the universe seeks coherence. It seeks higher and higher states of order.
Yeah.
And we as a species have been out of coherence, like a virus, like a cancer, with the system. And we're at a bifurcation of humanity, and it becomes a choice.
Yeah.
Do we choose to bifurcate off the cliff, which is the direction we've been going, or do we choose a higher octave? And he was talking about electron state changes. And that's exactly what the guides are talking about.
Yeah. I don't read anybody else's stuff. I wish I did, but for whatever reason, I don't. I buy everybody's book. I mean, I don't open them. And I think some of it has been because I want this to stay pure.
Right.
I want this to stay a clear transmission and not informed by the language or ideas of others. And I'm always so relieved when I hear that other people are bringing through comparable information. It helps me to, trust the oddness of this experience that I'm in as sort of the radio for the guides.
Thank you. So I want to go back to claiming ourselves as the divine. And I found this quote really important. Stop pretending you are not who you are. Stop lying to yourself and saying you are your pain, you are your suffering, you are your fear. Stop saying to yourself that you have no right to claim the kingdom. That is a claim in fear.
They're saying accurate. That's the truth. It's who you are. They're saying it is who you are. Say yes to it. Say yes to it and celebrate this. And celebrate this. As you celebrate this, you make it available to everybody else. It must be sung. It must be sung. And your song is your expression. And your song is your expression. The amplitude of your song, the coherence of your song, the coherence of your song in manifestation will be experienced by you, will be experienced by you in a loving way. In a loving way. There is no fear in God. There is no fear in God. To understand yourself as of God is to move beyond fear, period. And they're saying period.
How important would you say is prayer during this time?
Highly. I mean, I'm a fan of it. I've always been a fan of it. I was raised sort of an atheist, and, my opening came when I was sort of bottoming out in a hotel in Minneapolis, St. Paul, when I was 25, and the Gideons leave these little books in the drawer. And I opened one up and it said prayer for people in crisis. And I said it and forgot about it. And 3 days later, I heard a voice telling me to get my act together and how to do it. And I've never stopped. I think it's highly important. I don't think it matters what form you do it in, whether it's supplicatory or affirmative. I think to be in conversation with the God within is key.
Thank you. Before I send people, I want to send people to all of your work. Before I do that, are there any last words? I'm going to go to the guides. Any last words they'd like to share, or particularly words of hope for this time?
Trust yourselves to learn through this. Trust yourselves to learn through this. The learning that you accrue here. The learning that you accrue here will see you through more times than you know. Will see you through more times than you know. Trust yourself to care for one another. Trust yourselves to care for one another because you have the capacity for this. Because you have the capacity for this. Even if you don't believe it. Even if you do not believe it, and trust that it will end. And trust that it will end in perfect timing, in perfect order, When you have said yes, to who you may be, to who you may be, collectively may be without this informing your reality, without this informing your reality. Say yes to yourselves, please. Say yes to yourselves, please. You are of God. You are of God. Please know this is always so. Please know that this is always so. Anything to say no would have to be a lie, period, period, period. And they're saying period.
I want to ask last words of wisdom before I do that. What are you telling yourself on a daily basis?
Be grateful for what you have. I'm really working on the gratitude right now.
Thank you. Any last words of wisdom you want to share, Paul? And I can't thank you enough. What fortuitous timing. I see this as a huge positive with some real heavy challenges for people. I don't make light of it.
Yeah.
But I think this is the most special time in the written history of humanity. There has never been such a global event, a having to come together, because you can't say, well, we've got this wall, this border, this ocean. It's all of us.
It's all of us. I mean, I think you just said it. I think it's ripe with potential. There must be good. The guide said in one of their books, you can't be a victim and a master at the same time. And I have to remember that, in terms of how I approach my days right now, when it's very easy to fall into the old way of looking at things. So I don't have any great last words. I agree with you. I think this is a time of reckoning. And again, the guides say it's a facing of the self and all of one's creations. And I think good can come of this, and will, actually. I really do believe that will, as we go on. But I think the opportunity right now is to care for one another as best we can.
Where can people go to find your work, your guides' work? And I would say we dive into your work, however we define it, yours or guides, with everything that we've got in tiny little pieces, because we're going to be overwhelmed quickly. But I think we can see there's a lot more going on than meets the eye.
Well, yeah. I mean, my website's where people can find me, which is just paulselig.com, PAULSELIG.com. I'm doing a lot of online things. On Wednesday nights, I'm channeling. We're about to announce sort of a pay what you can or free, whatever it is, event online for people who want to do a workshop. I mean, I'm just trying to get the work out there. But the books are available. You can get them anywhere in a bookstore, or order them Amazon. They're IndieBound. They're there. And that's about it. I don't have much of a commercial these days. I'm just, happy to be here and showing up with this stuff. So hopefully I'll get to understand it better than I do.
Thank you so much. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get realization, and begin choosing a higher octave today, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Paul.
Much love to you, Michael. Okay. Take good care. Bye-bye.
If you like this video, then you're a light worker, you're a light warrior, and we need your love and light. We need to crank it up to the max. That's why we're offering boot camps. You can check them out down below. Monday through Friday events, 1 hour a day, almost free, to help you crank your light up to the max, get you in the most positive place possible, boost your immune system to the max, and help you to help the world to shine bright. We're also offering YouTube live events every Saturday and Sunday during this time to help you overcome fear, overcome worry, overcome stress, and again, boost up your immune system. These tapping events, these boot camps, all involve group meditations where we come together, set group intention, help you help yourself, help your family, and help the entire world. You're a light worker. Your time is now, so come join us. Click below for these extra special events. I just had one of my most all-time sacred interviews with Paul Selig and his guides. To check out more incredible interviews by Paul Selig and his guides, especially during this time, click here, subscribe below, click on that bell icon to be notified of upcoming YouTube live events with me, premieres with our authors as many times as we can, and everything that we have to offer. Be sure to join us for our boot camp and massively growing community where we are really coming together as a family, as one during this time. You can click below to find out about all things to do with our boot camps and our community. Give us a huge thumbs up if you love this. Leave your comments. Shine bright. Love you guys so much. Woohoo! We've got this.